Greetings, folks. Welcome back to the Jason Damico show. And we are pre-recording via Zoom, as we have been for the last couple of months due to everything going on. And as always, very special guest on the show. This cat is damn, what a player. And his dad is too. Really, really great people.
Yeah, man.
Playing in the Koch Marshall Trio. Got a lot of cool things coming up in the works. Please welcome to the show my new good friend, Mr. Dylan Koch.
Hello. How's it going?
It's going, man. It's going well. How are things on your end?
It's weird, man. You know, we're all in quarantine out here, man. It's just an odd time, man. It's just everything seems to have stopped. I had a bunch of gigs booked in April, a bunch of tours booked all summer, and we're supposedly going to Europe in late September and October. And, you know, who knows if that's going to happen, man. I mean, I know a lot of bigger touring bands, they have postponed everything until 2021,
Right.
you know, so
Right.
there's so many variables to be playing with, and it's just kind of it's a hectic time, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's get into your beginning stages real quick as far as how you got into music. I probably have a hunch as to how and why, but I'll let you explain it.
Well, yeah, man, I pretty much gravitated towards music when I was really young. You know, I'd grab like pots and pans out of my parents' kitchen and just start banging on them, and it pissed them off so much they ended up getting me this little like Toys R Us drum kit I'd beat on, you know? And then my pops would always play records and stuff, and I'd always be taking like pencils and pots and pans and stuff and playing along to like Stevie Wonder records, Marvin Gaye records.
Yeah.
And I was always tipping and tapping around on stuff. So it was kind of natural that I kind of progressed towards the percussive world, because people always ask, well, why don't you play guitar? Your pops plays guitar. And my answer is, I have no idea. It literally happened when I was a wee little tyke, man, probably like 3 or 4 years old, crawling around, smashing stuff, breaking little, like, I remember my grandmother had these wooden like containers, and I just bash on them all the time, and eventually ended up breaking them just because you know, it's just something I gravitated to at a very young age, man. So that's kind of the beginning. But I really didn't start seriously practicing until probably like the 5th grade. I actually picked up like, you know, the books, started seeing an instructor, you know, doing the real deal kind of, you know, learned practicing instead of just bashing on stuff for fun, you know?
Did you start off with syncopation and all of those like classic rudimental cookbook? Yeah, same
That's
here.
right.
Same
I
here.
mean, when I was a really little kid, I remember my pops tried to take me to go to a drum lesson when I was really young. When I first started just tapping around on stuff and pissing him off, he's like, well, we'll take him to a local guy in town, see if he can do anything. And I was probably like, you know, 4 years old. And the guy's like, all right, here's a paradiddle. I remember this very clearly. So he goes right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. And I just look at the guy. I took the drum pad and I just licked it. My dad's like, all right, that's enough. And that was that, you know? So, I mean, the real practice didn't start until my brain actually was like, all right, time to actually take things seriously and do it, you know, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are some of the major influences for you behind the kit?
Well, I'd say like the first one that I can really remember would be John Bonham. I mean, it's very cliche, but it's so true. I remember in like the early 2000s, there was like a compilation of live Zeppelin stuff that came out. It was called How the West Was Won.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember hearing that in the old Honda Odyssey we had and just going like, oh my God, like just the sound and like the power behind the drums. I was like, I want to do that. Like whatever that is, that's all me, man. I got to do that. So, I mean, ever since then, you know, it's Bonham, and then early Stevie Wonder stuff was huge. I mean, that's the first song I technically totally learned from start to finish on the drums. I'd set up the vinyl. I'd just start playing along to Intervisions and all these different records of Stevie Wonder. Love that stuff, man. Stevie's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So it was like rock and roll, funk stuff. And then later on, I started getting more into like anything Bernard Purdy I could find because
Oh, hell
Bernard
yeah.
Purdy, oh man, that groove is insane. He did
Hell
a
yeah.
master class in my old college, and I'll never forget how groovy that was. Oh my God. But I was into Bernard since, probably since I was a freshman in high school is when I really started diving into that world. And
Yeah.
then Gadd, of course, Steve Gadd, all that
Yeah.
stuff.
So
All
basically
those,
anything on the Asia record.
oh yeah, man. Absolutely. When I first got into Gadd, it was through Stuff with that band. It's Richard T, Cornell Dupree, and Gadd and Eric Gale, and I forget the bass player's name, but oh my God, it's an insane band. That's
Wow.
just like Groove City. That's some of the coolest stuff. And that's where I really started to learn how to kind of groove professionally is just by listening to those guys. Cause I consider myself more in the family of like groove oriented pocket players. I
Yeah.
mean, I have some chops, I can use them, but I don't really dive into that sort of stuff. I'm just more of like, I like the Gadds of the world. I like the Bernard Purdys of the world. I like the Steve Jordans of the world, just the
Oh,
real
yeah.
fat pocket dudes. That's
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
stuff for me.
What I have that written down as a bullet point and talking point being the pockets, you know, um dude, I've been playing drums. It was my first instrument and really the main instrument that I had training on for
Mhm.
years, probably 10 years. And it's like, and I don't know if you would agree with this, but the phases that you'll go through with pockets and playing around with where the hands fall together,
Mhm.
what's going on with the relationship with the kick and the snare, what the right hand's doing with the hat, what the left foot's doing. But I mean, primarily when everything is hitting at the same time or maybe a little bit off. And it was like after doing that for like 20 years, it's basically whatever it is, if it's consistent, that's what's going to win. So make the
Right.
choice, be with it for that entire piece, and you better
Mhm.
make it work. And if you are gonna come out of the pocket a little bit, it better be for a damn good reason and
Right.
for impact somewhere at the end of a phrase or with a fill. And there was somebody, I think it was Butch Vig, said like every single fill has to be pushed. Now I
That's
don't know if
right.
I agree with that, but that was pretty interesting for him to say. So anyway, a couple of these ideas, I'm throwing them around just so
Right.
to cause some conversation.
Right. Right. Yeah. When I think of fills, it's always they have to be a part of the conversation at the end of the day. Because I'd say that the bread and butter of your playing should just be whether it be kick snare hat or kick snare ride or whatever style you're trying to play, whether it be jazz, funk, rock. It's all a little different, but the main meat and potatoes is your groove at the end of the day. That's what people listen to in a song. There's not too many songs, if any, on the radio that are completely just it's
Right,
not a thing.
right.
People want to hear something that they can either bob their head to, or if it's jazz, listen to like this and go, oh yes, quite interesting. But there has to be an underlying motion of the ocean. It can't just
Right.
be check out the drummer. It's drummer time 24/7. Look what I can do. That's not how music works, man. It's a very conversational thing, and if you're playing with the vocalist, it's about, all right, so how can I make that shine? How can I make that be the forefront? In any fills and anytime you step out of the pocket, it's more to accentuate what's going on with everyone else rather than an attention grab for check it out. Like look at this cool thing I spent 3 days in the shed room just learning how to do, and now you're watching it. Isn't that great? It's like no one gives a shit.
Right.
At the end
Right.
of the day, I mean, it's great for if you got like a Instagram page full of fills, and or if you're doing a drum clinic, that stuff is great. But at the end of the day, it's about the bread and butter. Just kick, snare, hat, kick, snare, ride. You're grooving, It's about bobbing the head.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, dude, I still chopped drummers, dude. I mean, Billy Cobham, Aaron Spears, all these guys that are pretty much all just crazy chops. I love all of it, I love listening to that stuff, man.
And then you got the
Especially,
guys that do both like seamlessly, like Greg Bassinet, and
yeah.
it's like, oh my god, man.
Absolutely, man. I mean, because I'm not like, I could say that there's definitely like groove Nazis out there where they just will not tolerate any sort of drum fills. And I can't get behind that because it's just so lame, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
It's like, man, fills are cool, groove is cool. It's about finding the balance in
Mhm.
between,
It's all
because,
about the song. It's like whatever the song
yep,
dictates.
exactly, man. I mean,
Yeah,
music is the song at the end of the day. It's not kind of a look at me show unless you're kind of the front man of the band. If you're the guitar player in a band and the band's your band, you're going to be playing the most stuff, you're going to be playing the most busy stuff because it's a guitar player's band. Vice versa, as a vocals band, they're going to be taking the spotlight, not as many solos, more vocal choruses, yada yada yada. It's just going to be more focused on them. But there's very few bands that are like the drums are the forefront. I mean, one kind of quirky example would be like Keith Moon of The Who. I mean, his
right.
playing is a whole drum solo the entire time, but it fits with the song. It sounds awesome. One of my favorite records of all time is Live at Leeds. Oh my God. That's like rock and roll, like epitome right there. And a lot of those songs are still songs, but it's just like an entire drum solo of the entire thing. Granted, that's rare. I mean, that's one band that I can think of off the top of my head where that's true.
Yeah,
The rest of the
yeah.
band, kick, snare, hat, kick, snare, ride. You're grooving.
Maybe maybe Van Halen to a certain extent, but
Right?
I don't even know if that's applicable because
Right?
their arrangements are just so tight. Everybody's doing their job. Like
Yeah,
Hot for
man.
Teacher maybe, but that's yeah.
Right. Yeah, man. And like I'm trying to think of other bands. Like the Mars Volta is another one where it's like
Yeah.
crazy,
Yeah.
crazy drums the whole time, but it works and it sounds awesome. I mean, I love that stuff, especially with Thomas Pridgeon. Oh my God. It's so sweet. I can't get over
Maybe
it.
Neil Peart or
Yep,
you
Neil
know,
Peart for sure. Because I mean that Neil Peart's the kind of dude that, he came from the school that was like just recently influenced by like Keith Moon and all the
yeah.
guys in the 60s. So he was able to take that stuff and reimagine it in his own way, like right away.
Yeah.
'Cause, I mean, that's the stuff they were listening to as kids, man. Like all the Rush guys were all listening to like the early Who stuff, the early Beatles stuff. So they were taking all that information and reimagining it into like the more harder psychedelic kind of vein that they made. So it's interesting, man. It's just about taking what you listen to as a kid, reimagining it, and making sure it's conversational with other human beings. I'd say
Right.
that's like the core of what being a drummer is. Like you take your influences, you mesh them up in whatever way you like, but as long as you can converse with other musicians as you're playing, you'll be fine.
Mitch Mitchell is the only
Yep.
other one I can think. Mitch Mitchell or maybe Ian Pace to a certain degree.
Yeah, I love Deep Purple, dude.
Well,
Oh
Ian
my
Pace was
God.
my guy. That was the guy that lit me up.
Mm.
You know.
That live record, the Made in Japan record.
Uh,
Oh my God.
yeah.
Just the Ian Gillan screams, dude. I can't
Yeah.
get over it. It's so awesome.
And I mean John Lord. I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
just
man.
like what in the world? And we lost. And I say this all the time on the show because it just comes up when we talk like organ and all that.
Mhm.
But we lost John Lord and Ray Manzarek in the same year. I was like,
Mhm.
you got to be kidding me.
I know.
Those
man.
are like those are my two. Those are my
Yeah.
two guys.
John Lord is the man. I mean,
God.
as far as like rock and roll organ goes, that's like your go-to sound is what you think of in your head is like, oh, it's John Lord, right?
Yeah.
Like that's why like we have like a description for the trio and like there's a little excerpt in there that talks about like if like some sort of Deep Purple sound involved, because that's always like the gold standard is like you compare everything else to like the John Lord rock and roll organ sound. That's the main chunk. I mean, especially like at the end of like Highway Star where you kick the reverb cabinet and just go,
Yeah.
like nobody would do that stuff other than John Lord. It's the coolest stuff, man.
That beginning of Lazy is just disgusting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the jam.
So disgusting.
That whole record is just amazing. And like I'd say that Ian Pace's playing is kind of like a weird mesh between like the heaviness of John Bonham and the more quick-handed stylings of like early Mitch Mitchell just kind of meshed. Because Mitch Mitchell wasn't that heavy of a groove, and John Bonham wasn't really that light-handed with his hands. So I think if you mesh the two, you get Ian Pace, which is perfect. It's a perfect blend.
His hands are no joke,
Yeah,
man.
crazy fast. Oh my
No
God.
joke.
That's some of the coolest stuff. The Deep Purple stuff is awesome because most people just write it off as just like, well, because I remember when I went to school at the conservatory here in town, I was taking a lot of jazz lessons and all this sort of stuff. And jazz players can be a little more snobby, tooty. And if I brought in any kind of rock and roll or near heavy metal stuff, it was always kind of shot down as like, well, that's not real. That's not real music. Like, we're doing real music here. And I was just like, whatever. But when you actually look at the scope of actually talented players and just kind of like decent, I mean, Deep Purple is like the best of the best in like the early heavy metal world, dude. Like, they were and like, it's just as far as literally just ability on their separate instruments in like the 70 to 74 range of years, they were like the kings. They could not be touched in their little zone of metal, dude. They were the best, in my opinion, at least. And if I would have said that in my jazz lessons, I would have gotten eaten alive, because they just didn't want to hear it.
Well, you and I both agree heavily on that.
Yeah, man.
It's very, to me, the musicianship in that original lineup, Machine Head era. I just, I mean, and this really gets into some scary. So somebody's gonna freak out when I say this, but I don't know, putting them in the same room with Zeppelin, as from an improv standpoint, I think it would be game over for Zeppelin. That's just my opinion.
Well, the thing about it is like, I think Page versus
Blackmore.
Yeah, Page versus Black. I mean, I think they're comparable, but I mean, the fact that they have two soloists kind of, steps the game up,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Page to me, what blows me out is the songwriting. Zeppelin, it's always, for me, it's going to be the songwriting and the production.
Oh yeah,
and and Robert Plant, and that obviously, that's why they're more well known than Deep Purple.
For sure, that takes the cake.
Yeah.
But if we're talking like later Zeppelin, where Page started to get a little more sloppy and yada yada yada, but early Zeppelin, like in the days of like 70 to 72, I can't put them like in a comparison with anybody.
Yeah.
For those 2 years,
the first two records, man, like
that was the best.
Zeppelin
ever.
2 to me is just
And that live record, the what is it called? I just said it. How the West Was Won.
That's it. Yeah.
That record to me is like as good as live music. Like, that's the gold standard again as far as live stuff. Like, that record, the Who Live at Leeds, that Hendrix record, the Band of Gypsies. I mean,
with the Buddy Miles.
Oh yeah.
Oh
God, that.
Yeah, man.
Talk about pocket, Buddy Miles.
Buddy Miles is no joke.
Yeah, that's the real stuff, man. I mean,
did you see some of the clips with him and Hendrix at the Pink Pop Festival? What?
Is that the one where it's like daytime?
Yeah, and there's like tripping people, like climbing the wall and everything.
Yeah,
he's sitting there singing "Sky Is Crying" in like this ridiculous high key.
Yeah, man, I've
like
seen
a boss, man. And Hendrix's guitar is just it's so funny because it's just like all you can hear is his guitar, but it's just so good, so good.
Could you imagine being at one of those shows? Because they didn't really have the same volume restrictions as they do now. I mean, you could literally go there and just come out just completely deaf.
Yeah.
There's some story about some, like, I think it was in like 75 or 76, some teenager like got to the Who show before the Who started and unscrewed the guards on John Entwistle's amp and snuck in the amp and re-hooked them on so he could be in the amp for the show. And he played one song and he like knocks the thing out and his ears are bleeding. And I was like, holy shit, that's insane. Yeah, man. I mean, those guys were loud. I mean,
the Who, weren't they the loudest recorded band?
Yeah,
in the Guinness or whatever.
Yeah, there was like some concert in 76 in England where they took like a dB recorder and it was something like off the charts. I can't remember, but it was insane.
Like 140 dB or something. You're like,
man. Yeah. I think a lot of it was coming from the bass because John Entwistle just cranked it. Like he was not afraid to just go at it, man. And of course, Keith Moon just bashing everything in sight. I mean, that's going to be a loud show, however you
Right.
put it, you know?
Right.
But yeah, man, I couldn't imagine just being at one of those shows, just hearing that volume, because now you can go to a show and it'll be loud, but I don't think it'll be quite that loud.
Well, I think, and also the ratio from an engineering, and this is just like me from the mixing engineering hat talking.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot more low end now.
Yeah,
in
definitely.
production. So when you go, because like when I saw Metallica a year or two ago at PNC Arena over here, I mean, it was loud, but it was full. Like it was pretty good. It sounded great. And I'm seeing that more as a trend now with these larger festivals. I mean, they got the shit cranked, but it's still those kind of like higher frequencies are really tamed. Whereas I would suggest that back in the day, I don't know if they had that much manipulation or it was just a different. Yeah,
I'm sure it was a full, just the entire frequency range is just, yeah, right in your face, you know? Because I remember in college, I used to go see a bunch of dubstep shows in college, dude. I was a total rave freak for a few years, dude. Yeah, man. I saw Excision live, and I felt like, because the openers were loud. I mean, they were like, you know, your typical loud concert volume. But when he got on, he brings in his own sound system, and it felt like somebody just took their hand and pushed your chest the entire show. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
That was the loudest, hands down thing I've ever experienced in my life. I mean, oh my God, that was insane. I used to go to those shows all the time, and they were always loud, you know, and I've heard stories of like at the rave in Milwaukee, it's a place called the Eagles Club. It's like this old place where Duke Ellington played. It's this gorgeous like ballroom, but then they brought all these like dubstep, drum and bass, all these really heavy bass music events. And like I heard like a piece of the roof fell off from one of these events, just like a little chunk of the roof just went thunk. And so like we're dealing with huge low end just
boom.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, I could never like imagine like, you know, bringing that kind of rig to a show and just being like, all right, good luck, you know, to the entire audience, because it was insanely loud. Great show, but I mean, at a certain point, dude, you feel like you're gonna get sick if you don't have earplugs in with that volume. You literally feel like nauseous, you know.
It's real, yeah. It's strange how that. I remember playing a show. It was like way back in high school, Battle of the Bands, and famous theater in this area, Lincoln Theater. Similar type of. It sounds like that venue was what, maybe 500 to 1,000. The one that you were referring to?
The one of the Eagles Club is probably more like 5,000 cap. It's a big room. It's a big like ballroom, you know.
Gotcha. All right, so this is probably 1/5 the size, and yeah, it was just crazy. I don't know what was going on with the monitoring mixer and engineer on the side, but the monitors, the side fills were so loud back. Because I was playing drums. I was on the drum riser, and it was just literally going through my body. And I couldn't believe I've never experienced that before. Because I just said, give me some bass and some vocal in the in the side fills, and for whatever reason, I just couldn't really hear. So I just kept telling him and he just cranked the hell out of it. And at that point, we were just rocking out like the hell with it. But yeah, unbelievable. You know, how
thank
sound
God it didn't feed back at that time, because it would have fed back when you were sitting right there, just it would have been over. Yeah, that's the worst. I mean, that's my biggest pet peeve about, you know, setup. If the monitors are cranked and all of a sudden there's feedback, it's just like somebody just punched you in the eardrum. It's horrible. I can't stand it, because, you know, sound checks are fine in my book, but it's just when the feedback happens and the sound guy just like has the monitors, no bueno.
Well, and you know how things just change after there's people in the room,
right?
It's never the same. Yeah, everything's got to go up 15% usually.
And, you know, I noticed that as a band, we play quieter during sound checks almost every single time, just because it seems like when people enter the room, it just, the volume goes up on the
Yeah.
amplifier, in the Leslie, the keyboard,
Yep.
and I just start playing. I mean, everything just escalates, you know, not by an extreme amount, but I notice that for every sound check, I see the guy just
Yeah.
trying to, you know, make up for our extreme change once the show actually starts, and that seems to
Right.
happen every single time. You know?
Right. Well, let's talk about the trio real quick, because you guys have a lot of cool things happening. Recently signed out with Mascot.
Yeah, man. That's that was mainly for just the record itself. I mean, from a lot of our touring stuff, we're working with this company called True Grit, and they've been booking all the shows, taking care of the contracts and all that sorts of stuff for live booking, and that's really exciting. The True Grit guys have been taking really good care of us as far as touring and yada yada yada. And Mascot has been more of like for distribution of the record, X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And we've been trying to get a new one recorded, but since this lovely virus has come along, it's been a little hard to do anything. So we started recording at Josh Smith's place out in Los Angeles. And so we started the record. We maybe got, you know, 4 tracks, I think, were done and ready for mixing, but, you know, we needed more. So we were going to go out there literally like 2 weeks after this whole thing started. We were going to get on a plane. And so obviously we're kind of in limbo. But in lieu of that, I've been getting a lot of different recording equipment to just do live streams and do
Right.
demoing from the house, you know,
Right.
just because I figured why not? There's really nothing we can do live until probably next year. I mean, again, we have that tour that might happen this year, but I doubt it. You know, I really doubt that that's going to happen, just because they're already talking about a second wave. And if that happens,
Yeah.
then, you know, by October, it's going to still be going on, man, if not
Yeah.
worse. So I've just been trying to focus on it. We got this new webcam from Fishman sent us, and I got all these microphones for the drums. I got some mics for the amps. Got a nice Focusrite 18i20 Scarlett interface. For
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, it's like a nice little home studio setup for demoing, live streaming, because we do it every week for Fishman and Wildwood. And they've been going great, you know, now that we have everything mic'd.
Wildwood was how I found your dad.
There we go.
That's how I found Greg. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And he's been going live.
He's been with them for a long time.
Oh, yeah, dude. Probably since 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
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 It's been a long time, you know. And that's kind of how this room gained so much infamy, is him going live on his Facebook account, or whether it was live for Wildwood. I remember I was doing a gig in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, with a different band, and it was just like a one-off thing I was doing. And this guy comes up to me just completely wasted, and he's just like, "Your dad, Greg Koch? Orange Room of Doom?" I was just like, "Yeah, man, the Orange Room of Doom out here in like Wapaco, Wisconsin, or something like that." People were just like, "Dude, it's the Orange Room of Doom." And I was like, wow, the sunroom in my parents' house is infamous, you know.
Right. Right.
Room of Doom.
Well, man, I'll tell you, you guys are cranking out some killer jams, because I was just going through YouTube, and just the two of you kind of jamming a little bit.
Yeah. It's
Phil Boogie and all that. Like, it's just like you don't even need bass. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, man. I mean, like the Black Keys started off just guitar and drums, and it's because, like, you know, it's really just kind of grab and go. We plug everything in, make sure the levels are all set. We have a guy on the other end that kind of controls the computer through, what's this app called? I don't know. It's some app where he can like access the computer remotely, because he's out in Boston. So he's like the sound guy in Boston, accessing my computer for levels, making sure nothing feeds back, and he kind of does sound for us as we go through the video. And then we just kind of play. I mean, there's not really a set list. There's not really an agenda of the streams. I mean, it's pretty much just like to play and make conversation and make sure the pages stay active. I mean, that's kind of the main point of the whole deal, is just making sure that the online world is still active, because the rest of the world's gone right now as far as musicians are concerned and entertainers. There's nothing, you know.
Yeah.
Bars are just starting to open up around here, but I wouldn't just book a random bar gig around here just for the hell of it, because I'm gonna be wearing a face mask. I'm gonna have to be worried about standing 6 feet apart from people at the end of the show. I mean, it's ridiculous. So
What do you think? Do you think they're going to start booking some venues out by your way?
I maybe for one-off kind of slightly booked experimental bookings, but they're not going to bring people in from out of town for
Right.
sure.
Right.
I mean, they might do like if a bar down the street opens up and there's some local musicians that say, "Hey, we'd like to do a gig." They might do some kind of preparational hazardous, like, all right, we'll put you on the stage, just stay 6 feet away from yada yada yada. But I doubt it. I mean, this is very just possible. These are just possibilities. But as I was saying, man, I've heard like different touring artists aren't doing anything till 2021 in the fall. So we got it's a long haul, I'm feeling. So that's why having as much streaming stuff as possible is the way to go. I mean, and I think that's really the future of music as well, man. I mean, the internet's not going anywhere.
Right.
I mean, the internet's here to stay. And the more you can make your audio quality good, your video quality good, have entertaining content, I mean, that's going to be kind of the new frontier of music in general. So, I mean, this quarantine thing, I think, is just pushing that aspect of the business forward. It's just kind of forcing more people to change gears because, for a solid maybe year, this is going to be music, this will be live music right here, which is interesting, man. It's weird.
Yeah, it really is. Well, you've got some cool companies that you're working with. One of them we were talking about earlier, Hovland.
Yeah, Hovland
Drum Company. You want to talk a little bit about that?
They're a snare drum company right now. They're talking about doing other kinds of shells, but for right now, they make these beautiful boutique snare drums. I mean, oh my God, they're gorgeous. And they're all made out of black walnut shells, and I got this new one coming in with these beautiful bronze hoops, walnut shell. And the thing about the black walnut is it sounds kind of like a mix between metal and wood. So you don't have to pick between which kind of snare drum you're looking for. It's like the perfect blend. And this guy is, he calls the guy that runs it. He's sort of, he really gravitates towards the organic world. So he calls himself the organic drum farmer, which is kind of cool, man, because they replant all the trees they cut down. They do it all from scratch, literally from the dirt to the drum. It's all handcrafted and done in one building right now, man. It's really beautiful boutique stuff. And once I get my hands on one of these drums, I'll be able to do a nice demo video, some mics, and actually do low tuning, mid tuning, high tuning, show how the drum sounds and play some grooves with it and use it on all these different videos. And I'm really looking forward to that aspect. Because, I mean, I've never really done too much work with companies. I've done some work with Gretsch, and I love Gretsch stuff. And I've done a lot of mostly backline stuff they've provided me with. And they provided me with this kit. It's a nice renowned Gretsch kit. I really have loved this thing. It's super portable.
Yeah.
Sounds great. And the kick drum is small, but it packs such a punch. I love that thing. It's only a little teeny 18-inch kick.
Wow.
Yeah, it's small, but it's just cuts right through the mix. And yeah, man, so I'm thinking of working in the future kind of hand in hand with, doing the Gretsch and Hovland thing, because Hovland snares are ridiculous. They're so cool.
Yeah.
It's man, it's just an interesting new thread to kind of start doing demos at the house. I wouldn't have to go anywhere to just start doing demos and working more in that vein. Because, that's another aspect of, playing, is figuring how to market gear. And that's going to be my first real delve into, because my pop's been doing it since I was in diapers, marketing gear and all this stuff. So this will be my first kind of delvage into doing it my own way,
Yeah, yeah.
That'll be cool, man.
Well, so the new album is on hold then currently.
Unfortunately. Right. I mean, it's the kind of thing where we started recording it at two different places. We started recording it in one place here in Milwaukee, where we did the first record, a place called Making Sausage Music, love that name, dude. It's great. And then we started doing it at Josh Smith's place, you know, and Josh Smith is an insane blues guitar player. I mean, if you don't know him, look him up. I mean, he's wow.
Yeah, I've heard of the name. Yeah.
Yeah, man, he is crazy good. And so he's out in LA, and we recorded maybe 4 tracks there, and we recorded maybe 2 or 3 tracks here in Milwaukee, but now we're just kind of stuck in limbo with a bunch of unmixed audio and not quite enough tracks. So we'll probably, I don't want to say start from scratch, but you know, pick up sort of where we left off.
Depends on the vibe. Depends on what you guys are feeling, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Because, you know, there's something about recording everything on a record in a similar period of time that makes
same
it
mindset.
Yeah. More cohesive. It sounds better. It's in the same room, so it's not sounding like the tracks are coming from different records completely, and you're like, what the hell's going on, you know?
Yeah, continuity, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I love Toby Arrives. It's a
thanks, man.
Enjoyed the hell out of it. Was listening to it on Spotify a few months ago, and then especially the last day or two, just kind of before the interview, throwing it on. And speaking of names, you guys, like, the titles are fantastic just in themselves. You know, like Funk Meat, like,
yeah, man.
That's amazing.
Thanks, man. You know, like a lot of those tunes, you know, it's sort of the thing when we literally get together and my pops will have like a head of a tune, but not much else, and we kind of, you know, craft the tune as we play it. So it's really just, we're writing the songs halfway on the fly. They're halfway pre-written, but they're halfway made up. And once we get done with it, we go, oh, cool, that's a track. What the hell do we call it?
Right.
The names are pretty much as random as our process of creation, because a lot of these tracks come out in sound checks, you know, where it's just one person will start playing the groove, then another person will start playing along with that. My pops will come up with the head, and boom, that's a new song. The hell do we call it?
Right.
You know, so that's where like Funk Meat comes from, and Into the Rats. And we got a new song called Funky Klaus, which is literally our tour manager in Europe, who is the most unfunky dude you could ever meet in your life. He's the most like strict by the book, kind of not mean, but very stern kind of, you know, German cat, man. We call him the Funky Klaus because we didn't have any other you know. So,
what is your guys' tracking process when you're
it's all live. We do it all
that's
live.
What I thought.
Yep.
So it's just straight off the floor.
Yep. And then we've been doing a little more overdubbing and stuff with this next record. You know, we've been trying to do like one live track as kind of a bass and do some overdubs on top. But the last record was 100% live in the studio, not really much editing at all. You know, that was pretty much raw live stuff.
Right.
And this next one, we were starting to do more, you know, like a core track and then maybe a percussion track, some guitar overdub this organ solos. You know, we were getting a little more involved with this next record. But I mean, I do enjoy just going in the studio and playing, you know. It's easy and it sounds great, and there's not a lot of thinking like, all right, what would fit with this and what would fit with that? You know, it's basically just sitting down and hashing it out.
Happens. Yeah,
man, I like that vibe. It's a really good solid way of doing it, because I think the more stressed you are in the studio trying to figure out what works with what and what works with this, it comes out in the recording. You know, when you listen back to it, it just doesn't sound as natural and real as when you just kind of sit down and do it to the best of your ability without really thinking. I think the thought process ruins the creative process in my
right.
You know,
no, it's a great point. That's so prevalent. So prevalent.
Yeah, man. Because, you know, I mean, overthinking in anything's bad, but I think in music it's the end, you know, because whenever I'm playing live and I start thinking too much, I start screwing up. I mean, it's almost like a guarantee I'm going to screw up.
It's strange how that works.
Yeah. And the less I think, the better I play. It's just kind of like, it just comes out, you know? And that's why practicing and all this stuff in your early playing development is so important, because you're just building the neural pathways in your brain that you're going to use with your live, and you just go on autopilot.
That's
you
it.
Just want to be on autopilot as much as possible. You know?
Yeah.
And so I mean, when I was young, I used to practice all the time, you know. And then as I got older, it was a little less, and then a little less, and a little less, until at some point it was just like, all right, I have to learn tunes for a gig. You know, that's what I do when I sit down at the drums at my house. It's like
Yeah.
I'm not really going over technique all that much. You know, it's a lot of just like,
It's just a maintenance, you know,
yeah,
maintenance thing.
yeah,
Especially with, a couple of years ago, I wanted to get back into double bass just to have it.
there you
And
go.
God, man, it was just like the most brutal 2 freaking years of my life. It was like, oh my
Yep.
God.
Yeah.
Because when I had it, I was 14, 15, 16 when I was putting in all those hours. And
Right.
I think part of it is, you know, you grow, the body mechanics change.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, man, it just, man,
Yep.
it was a bitch and a half for 18 or 24 months, but
Yeah,
it
man.
was good to, you know,
And I
get
remember
those
like
chops back to a
I
certain
remember in
extent.
college, dude, there was kids that were super into double bass going like lightning fast. I mean,
Yeah, they're
insane.
crazy, some of these
Yeah.
guys. Like they're, you know, just sustaining over
Yeah.
200 BPM, you know,
And some of
it's like,
those dudes
what?
like treat it like a sport. I mean, they go to the gym and just work out their calves, you know, and that's it. They just want to have boulder sized calves that just go for 10 minutes straight and not stop. You know, that's their whole practice routine is. I respect it, man, because I do not have that level of patience to develop that lightning speed feat, you know,
Yeah, man.
because
No.
I grew liking like, kind of just one pedal, using your foot like so, the JoJo Mayer thing, and you have
Yeah.
a sliding. That's my bread and butter as far as one kick goes. But I found the fastest that I can go with one foot. It's not so much of this motion; it's a lot of side to side.
Yeah, the swivel.
Yeah, for right. Yeah, man. And as far as double bass goes, I can do it, but when it comes to going like 200 BPM, it's just like forget it. I'm out. I can't do it,
No.
man. Throw my
Once it gets to about 190, I'm about, I'm about done.
yeah,
I'm about done. I
because
can't.
you have to keep your calves in completely like lightning bolt shape, and you have to do that every day. You can't take a day off of going.
Yeah, and you know what I noticed, because the main thing that I had, and not to go down this dumb tangent of double bass, but while we're on it,
Right,
the mechanics are strange because there's certain, and it's kind of like the Mueller technique,
right,
with the hands,
right.
and depending on what you're doing, there's that whipping action,
Right.
and it's almost like you have to think about up before down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing. Like one of the big breakthroughs that I've had with the pedals, when I was like relearning how to really do this and sustain it at higher speeds, is it's a balance thing. It's a balancing act, and it's like you've got to be able. It's not so much playing the pedals; it's almost being welded to the pedals, and
Right, right,
almost that it. And you got to apply this constant pressure at a certain BPM, and
right, right.
then things just kind of fall into place, and it's really
Yeah, man.
it's strange. It's a really strange mechanical thing.
Yeah, man. Because all these techniques, again, it goes back to that autopilot thing. You work
Right.
on it, you do it slow, you figure out every single motion of your foot, and then when it kind of comes time to do it up to speed, it seems like it just goes on autopilot.
Yeah.
And once you've done it enough and you've practiced it a lot, it'll just seem like, oh wow, holy shit, you know.
There's no better feeling, like just finally having that breakthrough.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep. My first big moment like that when I was learning something that I thought was impossible to do was like a bossa nova groove. I remember
Yeah.
learning that and I was like 13, 14, and I thought it
Yeah.
was like complete hieroglyphics because you're trying to match up this clave with your foot, and I just couldn't do it for whatever reason. I was just like complete roadblock. But I practiced it every day, and within 2 months, I had it down. And I was like, "Oh my god, it works! Practicing works."
Some things just take way too much damn time, man.
Yeah, They really do.
They really, I mean, it's actually like pathetic how long it takes sometimes. And then you go through the whole rationale of like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
You go through like that whole psychological thing.
Oh
Like,
my God.
it really kind of screws with you.
Yeah, that's like the the definition of the musician. Just like you hate yourself until you get it right, and then
Right.
it's like, all right, how can I still improve? It's the whole musician thing, man. Every musician has that same thought process of like, all right, fuck this. Oh, all this like self-hatred and just nastiness until you get it, and then you find something else.
Right.
You find a new technique. You have to just like zone it. Yeah, it's nuts, man.
Yeah, man. I've had so many and it's funny because I've had so many moments like that. So like, God, like I just have to nail this and my life will be complete. And then 6 months later, it's like you're right back in there with something else. You know what I mean?
That's it, man. I mean, it's literally, yeah, there's no end. I mean, especially, if you pick something like music, there's really not an end goal.
There's no end.
There's always something new. You can pick out some odd rhythm or some odd time signature or this, that, the next thing. I mean, at a certain point, there's really no end. You can just keep on going.
What's
specialize in something and kind of develop an expertise in a certain area, but there's an infinite amount of areas to develop expertise in. That concept never ends.
What's your take on traditional versus match? What are you doing these days?
I switch for some. I'll show you if I have a drumstick sitting around. I do not. Oh, I do. 2 seconds. All right, so I do a weird kind of switch. Usually, I kind of, and there's no method to it. I mean, zero method at all. It's when I feel like playing matched or when I feel like I just have this weird whip that I've developed. I do it all the time. And it's like, I'll play this way if I'm playing more of like a slow blues and putting swing on. And then
a lot of ghost notes maybe, or, something going on.
When the slow blues ramps up and the guitar player is going crazy, I switch back to the traditional.
Yeah.
Or a match. And they go, and boom, we're good. It's insane how, I mean, things like that.
It changes things in a weird way.
Because I think a lot of it is, for me at least, is when I watch videos, I try to emulate who I'm watching.
Right.
So if I'm watching like a killing jazz player, I'll try to practice like this, and that's what I'll do. Or if I'm watching a killing rock and roll player or whoever, I switch back to matched. And it just feels better. And when I'm playing, I'm a very visual person. So if I'm trying to play in a certain style, I'll visualize the drummer that I'm trying to emulate. And I think that's what it is when I switch, either it be subconsciously or consciously, I'm trying to emulate somebody in my head, and I'm just constantly switching to what feels right during the actual song. So it's really just random. I can't say that there's too much method to the madness, which one I like more or less. It just is what it is.
I went through the Stuart Copeland phase.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, wait, this guy's playing rock.
Yes.
Traditional grip. What in the world?
I mean, that level of reach is crazy when he's playing.
Yeah, man.
Like over his head and down.
He's
time,
like that. I went through a Stuart Copeland Police fanboy phase back in middle school and high school. And
rocks, man.
Oh my God. Like the whole band just.
Dude, they're great, man. I mean, Andy Summers, Sting, Stuart Copeland, you cannot go wrong. You just can't go wrong with any of it. I mean, those what are those toms? Are they rototoms? They can't be rototoms. They're more wild.
Octagons.
Octobon.
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
Octobon or
I've always wanted a set of those because they're so cool. Oh my God, they're so cool. I want a set of those really bad. I think only Tama makes them, right?
Probably. Octabands.
Octabands. There we go.
Octabands.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that from some Stuart Copeland like stage side interview.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he doesn't use them often, but whenever he does, you're like,
yes.
They're just so cool.
His ride patterns, really like they were just like 13, 14 years old. It's just like
Right.
What? Like,
Yeah,
wait,
man.
what? And the
And
funny
like,
thing is like that stuck with me for years. I mean, 10 years later now, man, like
right.
even more than 10 years later, there's still I always kind of had that like Copeland thing in my playing. And
Right.
in some instances, it's a little too much hype. So I actually had to kind of just do straight eight,
Right.
you know.
Right.
But once you start finding like those 100 different sounds on the ride like he does, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God.
Yeah, man. I mean, and plus also his side stick technique. He could go so
Woo!
fast with that side stick. It was insane. Yeah. I mean, his whole playing is, next level, man, because
Yeah.
he's another original one, because
Oh, so yeah, the
there was
reggae and
no Stuart
everything.
Copeland before Stuart Copeland. Nobody played.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah, man. It was
What a an amalgamist, you
oh
know.
yeah. Yeah, man. He's reaching from so many different sources of inspiration and just putting them into one tasty soup.
What are some of your best and worst gig experiences? You don't have to use any names, but I was just curious to see. You
That's
guys
a
had
good
like
question.
a
Wow.
favorite, and a not so favorite, or something that just went really crazy.
Well, I've always enjoyed playing at Summerfest. I like those gigs because it's a nice big festival type
Mm-hmm.
situation. Giant crowd, outdoors. I've
Yeah.
always loved playing at Summerfest.
Yeah.
And worst, I mean, I've had some more like local bands playing with random configurations. You know, those kind of gigs where you get a text from one guy and goes, "Hey, are you available tonight? There's something for $75." And it's like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And you're like, sure, fine. Like, I'm not doing anything. Like, I'd say every single one of those. I could just group those together into one terrible experience.
It's almost like the gigs where it's like, what, I'm just not even gonna bring toms for this.
Yeah, it's kick,
It's just
snare,
not
hat,
worth
ride.
it. Like,
Boom. Yep.
it's gonna bring a freaking hat, snare, and kick, and
Yeah, man.
maybe a ride
Yep. And
attached to
there's
the
no
kick.
stage at that bar. You're setting up by the ping pong table or the darts. You're setting up right there, and you're like, all right, here we go. And they're always the longest gigs too, which I don't get. Like,
Yeah.
if you're playing like a ticketed show or you're playing at a festival, it's 2 hour slot. That's it. But if you're playing for $75 at Bingo's Bar and Grill, it's going to be 4 or 5 hours. And you're like, how?
And they're always 10 to 2.
Oh yeah,
always.
Oh, my God,
You're not going home until like 3.
Yeah, man,
4.
and you're not going home without just trauma of some just like, oh, it was so long. Why am I doing this?
Well, future plans for you guys besides all the adaptation, which I'm feeling on my end as well. Everybody's feeling, and it's just really, like we've said, strange.
Extremely strange. I mean, because it's such an oddball thing. I was planning on moving up to Minneapolis, doing all this stuff. I had all these other gigs lined up.
Weren't you in the UK at one point?
No, I was staying in LA for a little bit, and then I moved back to Wisconsin. I was going to move up to Minnesota right afterwards, just as a quick boom, boom, boom.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, coronavirus. I'm unemployed, zero money. Hello, Mom and Dad. I'm living at your house. So that's how it went, man. I went from sunny California to nice, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I'm staying here for a while.
Well, you're from Wisconsin, right?
Yep. Yeah, born and raised, man, in Wauwatosa. It's a town right outside Milwaukee, so it's right by Chicago.
Nice and like -30 come January.
Oh my God, dude, it's insanely
brutal.
Cold. Yeah, but I mean, you'd be surprised that Minnesota is not that much further north in comparison, but it's colder in Minnesota. I mean, Oh my God. I remember I went to college in St. Paul. I walked outside with a cup of coffee and like a thermos, and they had a little skyway system you can walk through so it's warm. And the door was a block away from my dorm room. And by the time I got in that door, the coffee was cold in the thermos. And I was like, how is this possible? Like, this is insane. Yeah, Minnesota is no joke. They do not play up there.
I've lived in upstate New York on and off, about an hour and a half north of New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cold, but it's not. I mean, it's
Yeah, we're talking about Arctic blast cold, man.
No, yeah, and I don't because they're the same. They're on the same if you from a geographical standpoint, they're kind of like on the same lines. What is it?
Right.
Latitude, longitude,
Right. Yeah, I
one of
think
those.
longitude. Yeah, I was so bad in school, man. We could do a whole episode on that topic alone.
But there's a big difference just because of the Great Lakes. Like that whole Midwest is that's a whole other animal.
Yeah, it's an entire vortex of just freezing. I mean, it's the kind of weather where you'll go outside and like one of the real cold days in winter where it's like -10 or whatever,
Yeah.
and the wind chill's like -40, you know? And you'll go outside, and by the time you get to your car, the snot in your nose is frozen. You're like, what? Why do people live here? I can't imagine why settlers were just like, this'll do, you know? Like, this is excellent. We'll live here for the rest of our lives. Like, no.
And even back then, with the conditions,
Oh yeah.
no, out in the conditions, no,
No way.
no housing. I mean, it's a whole other breed, man.
There's no way I'd live in a log cabin in Wisconsin ever, in under any circumstance, dude. I'd be in I think like perfect temperatures, like California. You go to California, you're fine. You know, it's perfect temperature all year round. Hot in the summer, but
Right.
winter is just the bomb. I mean,
Yeah.
spending a winter in LA is you're set. You're completely set. You know, you don't have to worry about anything. But coming from Wisconsin, hearing people in LA talk about the weather just makes you shake your head. It'll be like 60 degrees in the winter, and people have jackets on, shivering, like, oh my God, how can it be 60 degrees? I'm like, 60 degrees? We're talking about like early June in Wisconsin, man. It's 60 degrees.
Yeah.
You know?
Crazy.
Yeah, different worlds, man.
Well, this has been cool, man. I've got a little thing I like doing at the end. I call it the shootout round, where I'll say a word that's industry related to the guest, and you just fire the word back that comes to mind first, and there's no right or wrong answers. It's just shooting the shit.
Sounds good.
Kick drum.
Beef. It's gotta have beef. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
Snare.
Crack. We're going with caveman words, man. We're just going for the bare minimum. Beef and crack.
Toms.
I want to say thud, but my God, I'm just going like preschool here, man. Beef, crack, and thud.
Yes.
That's the first words that come to mind.
Cymbals.
Oh, that's easy. Tish, tish. Boom.
Tish, tish.
Yeah, man. Tish, tish.
Tish, tish, and boom, boom.
That's right.
Time.
Flexible.
Feel.
Irreplaceable.
Yeah. Groove.
Again, irreplaceable. But feel and groove, I think they could be married into the same family. You got to have great feel. You got to have great groove. I think groove has to more do with time, and feel has to do with more dynamics, right? Yeah, I think that's more the world. So yeah, I mean, I think they're related, but pretty much the same. Irreplaceable. First word, irreplaceable.
Yeah. Drum solo.
Yeah, I hate them. I can't stand them. I mean, I like to watch them in concerts, but doing them, I hate them because I'll always rewatch videos if there's YouTube videos and go like, oh God, no. I'm way too critical on myself. So first thought, hate them. Hate drum solos.
The older I get, I'm kind of the same way, which is hilarious.
Yeah, man. Live, better. Live is better.
Studio.
Good, but live is better. Live is just better, man.
I'm going to add one. I didn't put this down, but brushes.
Useless.
Yeah.
Just useless, man. I mean, I can fake some brushes, I can play them and do the thing, but really in a live scenario or in a band, I haven't used them. Like outside of a school situation, never. I haven't used them. You know? But they're interesting to watch. Like somebody like Vinny Colaiuta get some cool stuff with brushes, and Buddy Rich did some cool stuff with Max Roach did cool stuff with brushes. Yeah. But as far as modern music goes, as a modern drummer, I don't care. I know some drummer's gonna write me some email and be like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "I'm kidding. I'm just joking, guys. They're all jokes."
But we're not.
But we're
not. I'll throw another one in. Rudiments.
Rudiments, again, irreplaceable. You got to learn the rudiments. I mean,
do you have a favorite?
Well, I'm just gonna go totally generic and bland, but dude, the paradiddle is irreplaceable.
So applicable.
You cannot play the drums seriously and not know a paradiddle.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be kind of like a novelist and play a few grooves, but if you really want to take it to the next level, it's that simple right, left, right, left, right, left, left. It's going to change it all. It changes the whole game. You can play whole fills, whole solos, whole grooves that are just right, left, right, left, right, left, left. I mean, that's like the meat and potatoes of your rudimentary world.
Not to bring up double bass again, but
there we go.
But well, actually, let's start with this. Let's use that as a word. So,
double bass, dope, hard. Going dope and hard.
Well, what I've over the last few years, just again when I have time to practice, which is very scarce nowadays, but like different hand combinations over just right left on the bottom, and keeping that kind of pulse going in 16 notes. Really interesting.
It opens the game, man. I mean, it's really anything you add to the drum set will bring a completely new set of things you can do with it, whether it be an extra kick drum pedal or whether you add a cowbell or whatever you add, you're going to have an entire new palette to explore. It's a whole new world, Cowbell. Sick. More. That's the word, more. Of course it's going to be more. Oh, yeah.
I usually don't do these many add-ons because I was done after studio, but I was like, wait a minute. I don't think we're done yet.
We're rolling.
Last one. Most important. Pizza.
Pizza? Can't live without it.
Right.
Can't live without pizza. Right. I mean, who doesn't like pizza? If you don't like pizza, I don't trust you, man.
I have a good friend of mine. We were on set working on a film together, and we were in between takes. And he said, like, it was just so random, and this is like so him. He goes, "Don't trust anybody that doesn't like the Beatles or Bill Murray."
I think those are good rules to live by.
And I'm like, dude, wiser words have not been said.
That's right. And
until now, this show with pizza. That's the third emblem that we Beatles, Bill Murray, pizza, man.
Dig that. Dig it.
Well, this has been cool. I've got one more question for you that I ask everybody, which is, if you could go back in time to your 15-year-old self, knowing what you know now, what would you tell him?
Exercise, don't do drugs, and keep everything else the same. There we go.
Good stuff, man. Hey, this was fun, man.
Boom. Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on, dude. Appreciate it.
Where can folks find you guys? I mean, you guys are all over the internet, obviously, with the trio. But as far as you got a website besides the Instagram handle?
We got all of our booking stuff is on my pop's website, greg@gregkoch.com.
Okay.
But as far as my stuff goes, I like Instagram and Facebook. That's where I'm at. You can find me at Dylan Koch, or Koch Dylan is my Instagram handle, and rock from there, man.
Cool. We'll have that in the description box below or to the sides, depending on the platform.
Sweet.
And I think that'll do it. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Peace.